Hello and welcome to this edition of Joy in Our Town. I'm Ann Farrell Tater, your host, and today I am delighted to welcome my guest, Diane Kairos. Diane is with the American Red Cross, and our issue today is health, and our topic is blood and platelet donations. Welcome to the program, Diane.
Thank you so
Thank you for
much.
being here.
Glad to be here.
You know, okay, the Red Cross, the American Red Cross. Everybody knows the American Red Cross. We know the symbol, but can you a little bit explain, just for our viewers? I know that national headquarters is in Washington,
Yes.
but then there are a lot of chapters
The Red
throughout
Cross
the
is
country.
actually an international organization, but the American Red Cross is what we are here in the United States. And yes, you're right, it's based out of Washington, D.C., but there are Red Cross locations throughout the United States. We here in the Hampton Roads area are part of the Mid-Atlantic region,
Okay.
and there are essentially two different parts of the organization. There's lots of different parts, but there's blood, because everything about collecting blood is very highly regulated.
Right.
And then there's the whole other side of the house, which we call chapter, and that covers things like disaster services. When someone has a fire and you hear the Red Cross is out there and providing help to people immediately. That's the chapter side. Also services to the military, hurricane preparedness, many lifeguard training, lots of things people may think about with the Red Cross. I represent the side that has to do with blood collection.
So it's blood and then basically everything else.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, and on the blood side, your primary role is to basically have blood drives to collect blood that you provide to hospitals.
Yes, most people think, well, I won't say most people, a lot of people think that blood is collected primarily at donor centers.
Yeah.
And we do have donor centers.
Including your main office?
Exactly,
Is there one
in
there?
downtown
Okay.
Norfolk. And then there's another one out in Pembroke Mall. And those are places where we do collect blood, but the vast majority of the blood that the Red Cross collects is at community blood drives. That may be businesses, churches are definitely one of the top places that we actually collect blood. Community organizations, Ruritan Club, and so on, community blood drives.
So is this something you're always looking for, new organizations?
Always.
So about how many do you do in a week?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly. I know personally I'm an account manager, and I have most of Chesapeake and down to Elizabeth City. And in a standard month, I might have about 20 to 25 blood drives.
Wow.
We have 7 account managers, so.
And then they're just split up by
Geographically,
geography.
pretty much,
Okay.
yes.
So like if somebody calls and says, I want my church or my group wants to do a run a blood
we'll
drive.
hop all over you.
Yeah. So and then what kind of things, like do you ever say no, or what's the criteria to say yes?
I won't say we say no, but there are groups that are more or less viable. Sometimes there are organizations that might not be quite large enough, or we can kind of assess that they don't have quite enough of a reach to have their own blood drive, and in that case there are other things they can do, support existing blood drives and be I guess generically you'd say a feeder group, and support other blood drives come together. We also have a campaign called Sleeves Up. It's a sort of a virtual. It is very cute, and that's kind of a virtual blood drive for people.
And what's that?
It's a little. It's essentially, if you don't want to have your own blood drive, but you want to be able to support it, then everybody can sign in. Everybody can go to different blood drive locations, but sign in and have your blood donation counted toward that particular Sleeves Up campaign.
Oh, wow. So it's you're still doing it as a group, but you're just fanning out and going to different ones.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
a great idea.
It is. It's a social media driven.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, young people who might be interested in this. There's a lot of information about that on our website.
Okay. Now, what about volunteers? Like, let's say it's a smaller group that they're not big enough to have their own.
Right.
Could they go and volunteer at another blood drive?
We certainly do have volunteers. This is where it gets interesting, talking about the two different parts of the Red Cross with the chapter side that does so many other things. The chapter side also provides volunteers for blood drives.
Oh, okay.
So
you would funnel them into that side and then have them assigned?
Exactly. We provide training for volunteers.
I was going to say you'd probably need training.
Yeah, there is a certain amount of training for sure, and it's not rigorous, but I would say it's very important for people who are working at a blood drive to be able to know how to speak to donors, what to say to them, and how to get
So
them.
that actually is a good question, though. What are some of the volunteer opportunities at blood drives? Because you probably don't want them drawing the blood.
No. I wouldn't want me to be drawing blood.
Well, and I guess they could volunteer to give blood. That would be a good volunteer. But what other kind of the volunteer opportunities?
For the most part, at blood drives, we're looking for two different roles. We're looking for people to work at registration, which is when the donor comes in and signs in and gets some reading material and so on. Check them in, sometimes on a computer, et cetera. And then after the donor donates, then they go over to canteen to get their goodies. And at that point, it's a good idea to have somebody monitoring that part of the operation so that we make sure the donor is feeling fine before they leave.
All right, so let's now talk about who needs blood. We've talked about sort of the way it all works to collect the blood, but who are the recipients?
We all might need blood at any given time. That's one of the things when you talk to people who are regular blood donors. It's very interesting to see some of the people who are the most committed blood donors. It turns out that they have had a personal experience either with a family member or themselves. Anybody might need blood at any time. It could be a trauma, it could an accident, could be surgery. Lots of times when people have knee replacements, shoulder replacements, and so on, their blood is needed.
Right.
Also, premature babies is exactly.
The baby or the mom?
Both.
Oh, really?
Both could need blood. Absolutely. There's all kinds of complications that can arise. So generally, there's a fire, there's any number of reasons why people might need blood. And you never know when it could happen to you. I personally think of blood as almost like a voting or a civic responsibility. If you can do it, then why not do it? Exactly.
Now, can you explain what a universal donor is?
Yes, those are our O-negative donors. And O-negative donors are pretty rare. They make up, I believe it is 7% of the population. And they are able to provide blood to anybody.
Really?
So, exactly. And they are also,
so they're rare, but they're very important.
Exactly. And they also are, unfortunately, only able to receive blood from O-negative donors. So it's very important that O-negative donors come out and donate on a regular basis.
Or even are identified, because they may not know that they, are in that predicament,
Exactly.
right?
And most people, don't know their blood type until they donate blood. That's one of the reasons that for first-time donors, when we're talking to folks in high schools and so on, it's great as if for no other reason, and there are lots of other reasons to donate blood, but if for no other reason, you're going to find out what your blood type is, and that's a good thing to know in case you should need blood suddenly.
So do you provide the blood to hospitals? Or
yes.
How about on the rescue squads? Do they carry blood?
To the best of my knowledge, they don't actually carry blood, but they're going to. I certainly could be wrong about that, but
I know. I just started thinking, where does the blood go? They collect it, and then it.
Well, blood has a shelf life, and red blood cell. Most people don't need whole blood. They're not. If you're donating blood, they're taking a pint of blood, but most people don't get blood in that form. They get red cells or plasma or platelets. So it's separated out, and they all have a different shelf life.
Now, is there an age limit or an age range of people that are good donors?
You have to be a minimum of 16, and if you're 16, you do need a parental permission slip.
Oh, yeah.
But at 17, you're good to go. There are slightly higher height and weight requirements for younger donors under 18. But there is no upper age limit. One of my more dramatic donors one time came in. He was in his 90s, and he came in on a
Wow.
walker, and I thought, there's no way this poor man is going to be able to donate blood. And
Sure enough.
it comes every 2 months and donates blood, and has throughout his entire life. So there are reasons, of course. Some folks, as you get older, you might be on blood thinners, or there might be other reasons that would prevent you from donating blood, but for the most part, no, there is no minimum of 16 and upper age of, as long as you're in good health.
That is amazing.
It is, indeed.
And encouraging, too.
Yes.
That people have a long time to donate.
Yes.
All right, so the universal donor is very rare, but what's the most common blood donor type?
It varies by population. O positive is a pretty common blood type, and I may not have my facts exactly right here. We have a lot of A positive donors and a lot of O positive donors.
Oh, yeah.
But it also varies a bit by, in the African American population, there's a fairly large number of O positive donors.
Oh, yeah.
So there are all kinds of, and O negative donors as well. There are all kinds of reasons why there are certain groups that we like to really encourage to get out there and donate blood.
Well, I know you mentioned the 90-year-old man that comes on a regular basis, but how often, what is the time period in between?
You can donate a whole blood every 8 weeks. So basically at 2 months. If you think of it as 2 months, you can come back. 56 days is the exact time period.
And people really mark that on their calendar?
We have some wonderful people who do exactly that, who mark it on their calendar, or we have an app that they can put on their phone.
That's amazing.
It's
so
wonderful.
You've gotten high tech.
Exactly. The Red Cross is up to date.
Now, how many people, that one person, that 90-year-old man, how many people can he actually impact? How many people can he help?
That's one of the most, to me, most powerful statistics about donating blood. In less than an hour of a person's time, and getting over maybe a little bit of a hurdle of getting stuck with the needle, you have the potential to save 3 lives. At the very least, to extend 3 lives. Nobody gets blood just because they want blood. You're getting blood because you need it.
Yeah.
And each blood donation is separated out into 3 components: red cells, plasma, and platelets. And that's going to go to 3 different people, and that is in less than an hour of your time. To think that you could potentially be saving 3 lives, and it doesn't cost you anything other than a little bit of time.
Well, and you say that when they come in, it's a pint. It's exactly a pint.
It's almost exactly. It's a measured amount that is just under a pint. Yes.
And what are platelets?
Platelets are platelets are part of whole blood, but we do also at donor centers only, so that's just at Virginia Beach and the Norfolk Donor Center. We do have a whole separate process for collecting platelets. That process takes about 2 hours, and people actually consider that kind of, our marketing person calls that me time. For a lot of folks come in and they kind of make it their social thing. You can donate platelets every 7 days.
Well, wait, I want to talk more about.
We'll follow up.
I was going to say I want to talk more about me time.
Me time.
That needs more time.
Absolutely.
But we do need to take a quick break, and if you can just stay with us through the break, when we come back, we'll start with the me time platelets. I'm Ann Farrell Tater. You've been watching Joy in Our Town. I've been with Diane Kairos from the American Red Cross, and we will be right back. Stay with us. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Joy in Our Town. We're going to continue our conversation with my guest, Diane Kairos from the American Red Cross. Our issue is health, and we're going to continue our conversation that we started earlier, but we're also going to be talking about some seasonal blood donations and the importance of why we need to collect blood during that time. So thank you for staying with us.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I interrupted you, but we were talking about the platelet donation, and you were saying when you collect whole blood, platelets is one of the things that they use,
It's a
but you can
component.
also, if you go to one of the centers, donate platelets.
Platelets only.
But that takes a little bit longer.
It does. It's a process that's called a platelet apheresis, or platelet pheresis, I think, technically. It is the equipment to do that is very big and stationary, so that can't go out on mobile blood drives at churches
yeah.
and so on. So that has to stay in the donor centers. And there are lots of folks who come in and kind of make it their weekly outing. We have mother and daughter teams who will come out and go out for brunch and then come in and donate platelets.
Wow. So do they read magazines or watch TV or what?
Movies. They have movies.
Oh my
they
gosh.
have every bed has a little station where you can watch whatever you'd like, visit, talk. Some people fall asleep.
Oh my gosh, you can just fall asleep.
Absolutely.
How many pints do you actually need to collect in a day for this area? Does it sort of range depending on the part of the country, or is this sort of a universal?
You know, one of the nice things about the Red Cross is it's a nationwide organization. So most of the blood that is collected here stays here.
Oh,
but
yeah.
there are times, of course, we're all familiar with the horrible winter we had, not this past winter, but before, when Boston was essentially shut down for a month. Obviously, you can't have blood drives at that point, so the nice things about having a nationwide distribution system is that the blood can go where it is needed. So when there are disasters, natural disasters, or for any other reason, blood can be distributed elsewhere. The exact number of units of blood that are needed here locally, I'm not certain of, but I do know.
I bet that would change too, right?
It does change. It does change. The blood demand remains relatively constant, but the need for blood, or excuse me, the supply of blood definitely changes at certain times of the year, based on all kinds of factors, including, well, summertime. At the time we're taping this is that's coming up, and that's always a challenging season for us because schools are out of session, and we get a lot of blood from young folks in high schools and so on.
Do most high schools actually have blood drives?
Yes.
And
yes.
is that mandated by the school, or is that just
It's not mandated. It is perceived as, and I think correctly perceived as, a really good thing, a great introduction to students for some of the responsibilities of citizenship, good citizenship. Also, it's great for certain groups at schools. Every school's a little bit different, but it might be led by the ROTC club or by Honor Society or whatever. It's a project that they can see through.
Do they get competitive? Do they have competition?
Absolutely.
Can you say who's the good one?
I will not.
Okay, that's actually really smart.
But there are certain high schools that are kind of known rivals in sports things and are also rivals in how much blood they collect.
So you have to factor that in, that that's only 9 months out of the year,
That's right.
basically. So you just don't even count on that for the summer.
But there are opportunities for young people to host blood drives, and we encourage that. We have scholarship opportunities for young people to have blood drives, say, at their place of worship or some community organization, and they can, again, this is a great opportunity for, if nothing else, a resume builder to show that you know how to run a project from start to finish.
Now, do you come alongside them and help them put that
yes.
together? That's a great thing. And
That's our role as account managers, essentially, to be there and help the sponsor of the blood drive, whether that is an individual young person for a scholarship or our regular blood drive sponsors. We provide all the support and the tools that they need to have a successful blood drive. But I never want to say that there is not a lot of effort that goes into it on the part of the person organizing the drive as well.
Well, when you say scholarship, I mean like a college scholarship, you give them money?
They have the opportunity to be entered into a drawing for a scholarship. They're not every single, but there is we have different scholarship programs every
Yeah,
year.
that's great.
Yes.
I didn't realize that. All right, so summer's a tough time. What are some other seasonal times that are rough?
Sort of what you might think if you think about times when people might be distracted, Christmas and
yeah.
exactly. The winter time,
Oh, yeah.
because oftentimes there
The
are
weather.
closures. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Even here in the moderate climate that we have, there are times when there will be challenges, snow or ice, and we have to shut down a blood drive or not be able to collect. And the way that the Red Cross sets goals for blood drives and so on has to do with the hospitals. Let us know how much blood they are projected to need to serve patient needs. And then that filters down to each individual account manager who works for the
Oh,
Red
right.
Cross to make sure that we collect enough blood to supply those patient needs.
So your territory is Chesapeake and what else?
Most of Chesapeake, or about half of Chesapeake, and I go down to Elizabeth City. But there are 7 account managers in our region, and we go down to that area of North Carolina and
Yeah.
up to past Williamsburg.
Now what about, because Norfolk, that's a trauma center, right? Is Virginia Beach a trauma center too?
But the hospital
Yeah,
there?
the hospital.
You know, I believe so. I'm fairly sure.
So I would think Norfolk would have a much higher demand for, so does that mean that rep has higher goals? Or do
no,
they
not really.
try to
It
assign?
is not broken down. I mean, the Mid-Atlantic region, generally, it will stay in the Mid-Atlantic region. But
Oh,
blood
that's
that's collected
nice.
in Williamsburg might be
You can
used
use it in Norfolk.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. So
exactly.
is that a one that you kind of have to count on more blood needs because of a trauma
I'm
hospital?
sure that is true. I don't know the facts on that, but I certainly would expect that there is more blood needed at
Yeah.
places that handle more difficult cases.
Now what about, because you hear about people that, donate their own blood if they know they have
Yes.
an upcoming surgery. Do you guys collect that too?
We do. That is something that it's a special program, and it's under a doctor's prescription.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not blood. If the patient needs it, then they've got their blood that they have already provided. But if they don't need it, that blood is not put into the available supply because it
just
doesn't
keep
go
it.
through the usual testing.
Right.
What happens with blood is once it is collected at a blood drive, it goes through testing at laboratories and separation into its components and
Oh,
so
the
on.
3, to save 3
Exactly,
lives.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then each part of the blood has its own shelf life.
Oh, right.
Red blood cells will last for 42 days. Plasma can be frozen for a year.
Is that the only part that can be frozen?
Yes.
They can't freeze the red blood cells?
No, and platelets are, as we were talking about that a little bit earlier, they only have a shelf life of 5 days.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, so it is
you're-
very important to keep that supply of platelets good and steady.
Yeah. What is like an ideal blood drive situation? What makes it ideal?
Oh, there's all kinds of, we have some great sponsors who run blood drives, very productive ones, and when I say productive, I mean it might collect anywhere from 25 to 100 units of blood.
Wow.
Some of them as much as every 2 months. There are not that many sponsors who run blood drives that frequently, but since donors can donate every 2 months, we do have sponsors who run that frequently. Lots of sponsors run 3 or 4 times a year. As long as the blood drive collects at whatever its assigned goal is, and that's something that we work on very closely with the sponsor to make sure that we set realistic and achievable
And
blood drive goals.
what goes into deciding what the goals are? Just like how many people you invite, or is
Well, it's not a matter so much of inviting as it is encouraging and informing.
Yeah.
We invite everybody who's eligible to donate. We throw another statistic at you. I think we estimate that 38% of people are actually eligible to donate, but about only 10% of people actually do donate out of that 38%.
wow?
Yes.
So, but that actually seems like a low number. Only 38%
It's a
are
very
eligible.
low number.
Yeah. Why is that?
There are a number of reasons. Well, for one thing, that's of the whole population
Right,
as
but
a whole.
still,
So
that's-
some
that's
people are
less than-
underage.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
Right,
And
take those people out.
That's right.
What percentage is out of the population? Yeah.
There's also medications, as I said, for certain people, they might be on medications that would defer them temporarily, antibiotics, or like you have to be clear of an antibiotic for 3 days before you can donate. And blood thinners is pretty much for obvious reasons, you shouldn't be on blood thinners.
Right.
There's also, we are affected more than most places because of our military population by what they consider mad cow disease. It's
Yeah.
actually called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Say that 3 times.
I know.
I'm very impressed you got that out right.
I say it a lot. But
that's mad cow's disease?
it is something that they don't have a test for yet. So everything that the Red Cross does, or any blood collection agency does, is dictated by the Food and Drug Administration.
Oh, wow.
So they set the guidelines as to, based on, we have 2 main things. We need to assure that we have an adequate supply of blood, but also a
Right.
safe supply of blood. And that it's safe for both the donor and sufficiently potent for the recipient.
Sure.
So there's all kinds of reasons that people may not be able to donate, including low iron, including perhaps travel to a malaria risk country, or some of the longer term deferrals like the CJD or mad cow disease.
Well, so the answer to that question then would be if they were in a certain geographical area?
It's complicated, but it has to do a lot with European, having stayed in certain parts of Europe primarily for certain
Really?
periods of time. I won't try to explain
No,
the
but
details,
that's interesting.
it's
So when a donor comes into the center and they have to, do you have like a questionnaire to?
yes. Let me, as a matter of fact, I'll very briefly go through the steps of
Yeah.
what to expect at a blood
Yeah.
drive. It's not that much, but you'll come in and you'll actually register, and then you get some reading material that lets you know what you're about to do, and
Right.
gives you the opportunity to self-defer if there's anything that applies to you that makes you think you couldn't donate. Then after that, you go to health history, and there's a series of questions that have to do with all kinds of things, including travel and medications and lifestyle issues and so on. Then you donate blood. The donation process takes usually not more than 10 minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes altogether. And then you go over to canteen and get your goodies, snacks and orange juice and whatever you'd like to have. Lots of our churches, when we talk about what makes a great blood drive sponsor, churches
provide
sometimes
those.
will provide extra things too, somebody's
That's
favorite
so
brownies, etc.
That sounds like a real efficient process. So
It
it's not
is.
that much. So you would encouraging people to go and donate blood,
I
right?
certainly encourage that.
Well, Diane, thank you so much. You have been a delightful guest, and
Oh,
we are
thank
so
you.
appreciative of what you do. And we hope people will watch this and be encouraged to go and donate blood.
And we appreciate the opportunity to talk about it too.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm
you.
Ann Farrell Tata. Thank you for joining us this time on Join Our Town, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Join Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Join Our Town, P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.